Welcome to Take It from the Ironwoman. My name is Susanne Mueller, your host and the Ironwoman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. You will hear from everyday, smart, sophisticated, hip people like you and me. Not everybody has to be an Ironwoman to impress the world. Together, we will learn from the sports and business leaders how you can become a more successful person as an entrepreneur or a leader. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Take your steps now. Take your big steps now. Join me on this journey to success. This podcast is being sponsored by Get Loopy. On episode 41, you can hear the story of Isabel, the co-founder and CEO. Get Loopy, get a 20% discount off your first order. GetLoopy.com. Hello and welcome. Take it from the Ironwoman. Guess what? Today we have a real special guest, Nevio Dobry. He is the marathon man. 108 marathons in all continents, and he came from Europe. Nevio, very happy to have you. You are my role model. Tell us a little bit about your story. How did you get into the running, and how did you get to New York?
Well, how did I get into New York? Oh, I'm the original import.
Okay.
Import made myself. I came to New York City in 1957, in April 7th, 1957. I was a deck boy on a merchant marine. We were carrying coal from Norfolk, Virginia to Italy and North Europe in Amsterdam, all those places. I did that for 6 months. And after that, I said, I don't want to go back to Europe anymore. I just want to stay. So what we call at that time, I jumped ship. I just got off the ship and never come back. That's it. But that was the beginning of trouble. You just cannot do those things. It's illegal, you know. The immigration department at that time, they were not as kind as they are now. At that time, they caught up with you, put on the shackles, and they ship you right back. But I fought the U.S. government for the next 5-6 years. I fought them. Finally won.
Good.
My right to stay here. It was a long, hard fight. Very costly. It took a lot of people to make me stay here. But the most important people who made me stay in here is Senator Javits. I don't know if you remember him. You should. Congressman John J. Lindsay and Congressman from Westchester, Congressman Alden Reed. Alden Reed belonged to his family owned the Herald Tribune at that time. The Herald Tribune was in direct competition with the New York Times. Yes, as a matter of fact, the Herald Tribune is still being published out of Paris in Europe. But him and Councilman Delaney from Queens. Okay. Those were instrumental people for me to stay in this country because I went to him if they can help me out to stay here. And he said, there's no way you can stay here. No way you can stay legally. You cannot stay here. Yeah. Get out of the country, come back legally. How do you do that? There are only a couple of ways to do it. You can get out of the country, come back as a foreign student, exchange student, or get married. Yeah. The famous last resort, right? But I had a couple of volunteers on that department. I said, no. I said, I'll take my chances by myself. In the meanwhile, the immigration department caught up with me after 18 months. They caught up with me. They brought me over to detention center in New Jersey. From there, I was supposed to go to Ellis Island for detention. But my attorney somehow he wiggled himself into it. He said, I just did not go. That's it, period. So, but in the meanwhile, after the immigration department caught up with me, a week after, who came after me was the FBI. Yeah. Well, I always heard about this FBI. To me, the FBI were if you saboteur, a spy, something like that. High crime for the state. I didn't do any of those. What did I do? But then the agents, they saw me. I was terrified by their presence. They said, don't worry. He said, well, why should I be worried? He said, but you did something wrong. He said, what did I do? The law in the United States says that if you stay in the United States more than 6 months, you're supposed to register for the Selective Service Board. I did not do that. So therefore, they're telling me tomorrow morning, you got to register yourself for the Selective Service Board for Banta Place in New Jersey, in Hackensack, New Jersey, which I did. Through a long story back and forth, after 6 months, sure enough, I got a call from Uncle Sam. You know who Uncle Sam is? Call from Uncle Sam. I said, you got to get into the Army. I said, me into the Army? I said, so what am I going to do over there? I said, I'm not a citizen, I'm not anything. You were called in, you go in, period. So I went in. I was in the Army for 2 years and 1 day. 2 years and 1 day. Because at that time, he said, how am I going to stay here? So the lady, which was taking care of my problem, went to these 3 congressmen. He said, they were going to introduce special legislation just for you to stay in this country. So I said, how are you going to do that? He said, well, what we're going to do is this. He said, when the Congress is in session, sometimes they go around the clock. He said, if you go past midnight, he said, around midnight, we're going to come in, introduce special legislation just for you. At that time, around midnight, he said, most congressmen, he said, they're asleep. They don't know what they're doing anymore. So they're going to say, well, yes, it did not happen. Did not happen. So in the meanwhile, I borrowed a lot of money, because this cost a lot of money. They took me in. They took me in the Army, swore in, boom. From New Jersey, they sent me to Fort Dix, training. From there, schooling at Fort Belvoir in Virginia. From Fort Belvoir, Virginia, back to Fort Dix. And from there, they shipped me to Germany. I was in Germany for 18 months.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Oh, yeah. But while I was there, this lady that was taking care of my problem, she kept working for me. Unbeknown to me, she went back to the 3 congressmen. He said, well, there's not much we can do. I said, not much we can do. I said, these are the laws. You got to go by the law. But they kept working for me. Somehow they felt sorry for me. I was in the Army, because what they were going to do is, once I get out, consign me over to the immigration department, boom, you're going back.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go back. I did not want to go back. I did not want to go back. When it was the time to be discharged from the Army, after 2 years, they shipped me back to the United States. And from here, it's supposed to be all kinds of legal maneuvers, so forth and so on. I was supposed to go to the immigration department, have a trial on me, all kinds of nonsense. And I went through the motion. But in the meanwhile, when all this thing was going on, the 3 congressmen kept working for me. And what they did was pass legislation that anybody who served in the United States Armed Forces for 2 full years, and he has an honorable discharge, can apply for residency in the United States.
Yeah, that's correct.
I said, well, that's what happened. So when I come back, I got called in by the Army of Fort Hamilton, New Jersey, in Brooklyn, command of the Fort Hamilton, which is a 3-star general. I went back there, and he told me, he said, what did you do? He said, why? He said, the immigration department, they're looking for you. I said, what did I do? I didn't do anything, I said, except I stayed in here. I always stayed, I said. I didn't do anything. I was called in the Army, I went in the Army. Then he looks at my record, and he read me a telegram which said that Specialist 4 Class, Nevio Dobry, is like a corporal, he said, not to be released from the United States Armed Forces until he has completed 2 full years in the Army. And the general looks at me and he said, why should I do this? Then he looks at my record. My record was like this thick over there. And he noticed that I had a letter of commendation from my company commander for what I'd done. And also, I had a good conduct medal. Very hard to get there because, if they reprimand you just once, you will not get that. But I got it.
Oh,
anyway, he says, no, he tells me this. He said, the United States of America, he said, needs men like you. So therefore, he said, you're going to be staying here with 2 years in 1 day. That's how I stayed in this country.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah. I can write you books. What do you mean? There were joy and tears, all of these things, I went out of the country. I was down in Bahamas, supposed to be there for a week. Instead, I was there for 3 months, 3 months to get the visa to come back. So finally, I got it back, and I met a lot of people down there because there were a lot of people in the same condition, not the same mind, but they were looking for a visa to come back to the United States. And there was another guy out there, another Italian guy was looking for the same thing. There was a black man from Haiti. And this black man from Haiti was a prime minister.
Wow.
Prime minister. And he escaped Haiti because Papa Doc, I don't know if you remember, Papa Doc, dictator, was looking for him because he was trying to overthrow the government. So he ran over in the Bahamas to come here to the United States as a political asylum. Okay, we were there, all three of us, penniless, of course, no money, none of that, and we had no place to stay because hotel costs a lot of money. So we stayed underneath in an Anglican church, basement of an Anglican church. The pastor gave us the cots and we slept in there. That's all we did. And this guy, this prime minister was older than we were. He says, tonight, tonight what? I said, I'm going to take you a place. Where are you going to take me? He said, your place will have a lot of fun. He said, oh, I said, what kind of fun? You'll see it. He said. So he took us into an all-black club. We went in there, dark places. The only white man over there, three of us, the two of us. And we were there, girls came over, this black woman, and then, they came over. But also did some 4 black men too. He said, telling us, he said, if you don't leave this place within 5 minutes, you're going to meet a lot of trouble. So I said, why? This is all only for black people, not for whiteys. Okay. I said, okay, we left the place. So next day, we told the pastor of the church, he told me about the story. He tells us, he said, listen, you are here as a guest of the government, not to change way of living.
Wow.
Said, that's right. This was an all-black place. You should respect it. He says, okay, no problem. So we did it. Anyway, I come back to the United States. I went through another trial, again, with the judge where he sees my record. Again, he says the famous word, the United States needs men like you, boom, 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 boom. He made me permanent resident. Yep.
A good ending of the story. And where does the marathon come in? Where is the running?
Oh, wait a minute. The marathon was a long way to a marathon. 26 miles at that time too. Well, in the meanwhile, I got out of the army. There's one mistake I always regretted not being able to do, not doing. I always like to see after I was in for 2 years, you had to stay 7 years in reserve. So I made a mistake not to join the Coast Guard. Okay. So I wanted to join the Coast Guard, but I didn't do it. But anyway, I went out. I got myself a job in my own industry in construction, and I was there. And the immigration party came around, check on me. They used to come around and check on me what I was doing. Oh yes. It wasn't easy. It was not easy. So I was there with this company for 16 years. And a friend of mine over there, he just got out of high school and he went to college, City College. He started to form a company into the construction, the HVAC, mechanical work, heating and air conditioning. So come with me. Okay. So I'll come with you. After 16 years, I went with him. It took us, 3 or 4 years to get into we were a force to be reckoned with in the metropolitan area. We started to build buildings, so I can go throughout the city of New York. Every corner there is a building which I touched.
I know. This is how I met you, right? So
yeah, I know. From Co-op City. I don't know if you know Co-op City. Buildings for 55,000 people. We built it in 2 years. That's what it is, and I became a vice president. And overall, actually, I was with the same company for 60 years. 60
years. 60.
Yes, 60 years. I was there and it kept going. We got more and more involved. I became more and more a legend in my own time as far as the construction. And I was good at it too, by the way. I was very good at it.
I know. A diligent marathon runner, you're a diligent worker. That's what I know, right?
How do you start working? How do you get into running? Well, way back in the 70s, that's when the running boom started. I saw the marathon when Frank Shorter won the marathon in, Berlin? Yeah, I think in Berlin. Yeah. When he won the famous race, I was gaining weight. So what do I do now? Yeah. I said, stop smoking. He said, okay, you can stop smoking, but that will only temporarily. So I said, well, let's see what happens. So one day, heard on the radio, you can join any kind of club to lose weight. Yeah, all kinds of diets. Scarsdale diet, California diet, you name it, they were there. But they said you can join them, you can do everything you want, but nothing will work unless you exercise.
Oh,
nothing will work.
The magic word.
Right. magic word. You have to exercise and be disciplined about it. Not today, yes, tomorrow, no, and then I know. Very easy to say no to yourself. Very easy. One day I decided to make a run, so I went around the block in my house. It was only 2/5 of a mile. But when I come back at my house, a turtle on his back probably was going faster than I was going. Because, I was 190 pounds. 190 pounds, going even more so until I reached 207 pounds. So I kept going around the block every night. After a month, I was on a track doing 5 miles a day. But I was always good in running. I played soccer. They were telling me I was fast. Okay, but I said, let me see what happens. So I kept running and running and running. So one day I decided, well, let me see what I'm going to do. So I joined a race up in Scarsdale, up 15-kilometer race, 9 miles. So I went in there, I joined it, I finished it. But then my boss was leaving for a long vacation to Asia. So before he left, he taped on my phone and said, if you are that good into running, why don't you join this, see what you can do. It was a 5-mile race out of the Merchant Marine Academy in Nassau County. So I joined it. I had nothing. I put on a pair of shorts, a t-shirt, a broken down t-shirt. As far as sneakers, there was the one with my toes out of the clothes because I didn't have
with
any.
a big hole.
Yeah. And so I bought some brand new sneakers, but I said you can't run with the brand new sneakers at the start. So I decided to run with the old sneakers. And I went there. I just made it for the race. It started with a 5-mile race, and I did it in 30. Actually, it was registered 35 minutes. 35 minutes.
Super fast.
The first 5 miles was a pretty good pace. But when I finished the race, I had no knowledge what I was doing. I saw a lot of people coming over. The finish line, they just stopped running. They kept going. They kept walking. Me, I just stopped running. I went out of the line. Then I seen everybody's coming back with an apple or something, eating over there. Let me go over there myself. So that's where they took your time at the end of the line. So I lost 3 minutes. These
were the days. Okay,
yeah,
no chip.
So that was my very first race, 5 miles. I did 35. You take 3 minutes out, it was 32 now.
Wow.
So I was good at it. Thereon, it boomed after, this was in 1979. And there's this friend of mine with the same company, he was a bookkeeper, and he told me one day, so he said, why don't we train for a marathon? What? We're talking about marathon? Yeah, marathon. That's a tall order, I said. That would be the pinnacle of all thing with this running. So we trained for it, entered into the Montreal Marathon. It was 3 months down the line. So we had time to train.
No, that's a good time.
We entered into the race. We were focused on that race, the two of us. We went to this race. We flew to Montreal. I had no idea what the hell we were doing. No idea. No idea. He said, when you go to the race, you see 10,000 people ahead of you. Where are you going to start? The front, the back? So I said, the best thing to do would be to go, not the last ones, but middle of the block. So we started the middle of the race. And again, I know none of us knew what the hell we were doing. I noticed that on the first 3 miles, 5K, I did in 18 minutes.
That's a little fast, huh?
I said, this is way too fast for me. What am I doing? So I slowed down and I kept going until at the end of the race, where the race entered into the park in Montreal. And I never forget, I saw number 286 into the park. 286 meant, after I found out, I was in 286th place.
Fantastic.
We were 12,000 people. Out of 12,000, 286 wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
But anyway, I finished the race in 2:49. Well, that was something for me. But anyway,
the first marathon in 2:49 without knowing.
2:49.
That's amazing. And how old were you there, Nevio?
What do you mean?
How old were you when you did the first marathon?
I was 40 years old. 40.
Oh my God. This is amazing. World class.
Yeah, it was a good race. Wow. I never forget at that point. I tried to duplicate it by myself with the New York City Marathon. I almost killed myself, I must say, because
I'm sure.
I've been out training. I used to do 120 miles a week of training.
Oh my God.
120, 120 miles a week is.
That's amazing. How did you, I mean, I know you were working a lot, and how can you run 120 miles? I did probably 40 and
4 times a week, 20 miles at night.
That's amazing. Talking about discipline, right?
Oh, not only discipline in doing it, but food, intake, work. Remember, I was married, I had 4 children.
Yeah.
The only one working was an amazing thing. Was the more I ran, the more I fed myself the ego.
Yeah.
You have to satisfy the ego too,
Sure. Yeah.
But anyway, I kept running, and also any marathon I could enter, I was capable of running a marathon every second week.
Every second week?
I was capable of doing it, yeah.
And you said the last time we spoke, you said you have done 108 marathons. So
that's correct.
Which one was your favorite? Do you remember?
My favorite? You heard about this. I don't know, maybe you might run it. The Yonkers Marathon.
And how come?
In Yonkers, point to point, very hilly. You ran among the traffic, nothing stopped. Point to point, you ran on the road alongside the cars, and the cars were not very friendly to you.
No.
Especially intersection. They went first. Let's say, could care less about you. Oh, yes.
Talking about safety these days. Nobody would do that.
I did over there. I came 15th place overall. 15th.
Wow, this is amazing.
15th place. And I kept going. And then, I ran a lot of short races. I used racing on the weekend as speed workouts.
Yeah.
I did. Kept just running and never stopped running. Then I joined Bob Glover's class.
I know, that's where we met. Bob Glover, every Tuesday. Right. Every Tuesday.
Bob used to come to me and say, "Don't kill yourself." I said, "Don't worry, I won't." So he knew what I was doing. You keep in touch with Bob?
Unfortunately, I don't know. I think they both moved upstate.
He's playing golf nowadays.
Okay, see? He's switched from running to golf. Okay, good. Yeah. You've ran a marathon in every continent.
That's correct.
And I remember one time you went to Nepal or India, and the other one is Antarctica. So tell us.
Antarctica. I mean, Antarctica, Nepal, and India, yes, at the foot of the Himalayas. But that was part of a 100-mile race. Every day you ran certain mileage.
We have people in the audience who might want to start, who have not done 108 marathons like you. What recommendation do you have if somebody wants to start now?
Discipline.
Okay.
Discipline. Very easy to get up in the morning and say, well, go out for a 5-mile run. But you just get up. It's very easy to say, no, I'm going to go underneath it to sleep, back to sleep. Very easy to say that. The thing is to get out of the house and go for it. And I used to go out at night, around 8 o'clock, come back at 1 o'clock in the morning into a park, going to Flushing Meadow Park, and run 20 miles. In summer, winter, you name them.
I know. I remember. And how many marathons in New York have you done? I think that's another
38,
amazing.
38 straight.
38 straight.
Straight New York City marathons.
That's a big accomplishment. So I think for all the listeners, it's amazing. So Nevio says it's about discipline. And it seems his life with immigration was like a marathon in it. It's about discipline and never give up. I think that's...
Never give up. Absolutely right. Never give up. I never dropped out of a race. Never.
That's amazing.
Never dropped out of a race. I had to finish it, period.
Yeah. I like that determination. So it's also about determination. Never give up.
Willingness to do it, you just do it. Yeah. Nike was right. You just do it, period. The famous hitting the wall at the 18 mile, 20 mile didn't exist. Not exist. It's all mental.
Okay.
If you wanted to be there, it's there. Believe me. If you wanted to be there, it's there. The wall is there. My trick was this. I always ran. It was never only once I ran a marathon upstate New York. I came in third, believe it or not. So it wasn't too many people. The way I did it is, there were maybe 10, 12 runners ahead of me. I used to pick on them, run, pass them, and just go to the same pace, and I keep going, just dropping them off. I used to drop him off. I used to pick on one running. I'm going to have to pass him. That's the way I did it.
Nevio, you're certainly my role model. 108 marathons, 38 in New York. This is really something.
It's a number. It's a number.
It's a number.
I remember having a little seminar with Bob Grover talking about over there. There's always the brashy guy. Oh, I can do that. I can run 108 marathons. I can run 38 straight marathons. And Bob Grover would say, you come up to him. He says, just a moment. How you plan to do this? Yeah, how you plan to do this?
Yeah.
You know, anything can happen in 38 years. You get married, you get a fight with your wife or girlfriend or whatever. You have death in the family. It affects your normal life.
Yeah.
It's not that you run every day. It affects your life. But I always somehow I managed to do it. And I was good at it. I was good at it.
I think so. And it was your passion, right? So when I remember whenever I met you, there was a good story about another marathon or something that you were training for. Thank you very much, Nevio, for sharing your story.
Thank you, Susanne.
Amazing things can happen with determination and discipline. Thank you, Nevio, for reminding us. Many more marathon stories are coming, but certainly I think he has the best. What is yours? Thank you for listening to Take It From the Iron Woman. Leave a comment, like us, and don't forget to get your loopy. Get loopy, 20% off your first order.